Hey everybody, welcome to this video from Let's Watch the Golden Things. This video is going to be our first podcast, and it's called the Golden Things Podcast. And we're going to be talking to you about all things that are kind of related to our channel, that could affect our channel, could affect our lives here in the Kurdistan region of Iraq. So this is going to be a new part of our channel, and I'm really excited to bring this podcast to you guys and to the world because I believe that, our channel has unique insight to some of the things that happen in the news, such as the recent announcement that the U.S. is warning Iraq of closing the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. So here at Let's Watch the Golden Things, we live in the Kurdistan region of Iraq, in the city of Erbil, and we directly experience many of the, things that happen in regards to U.S. relations with Iraq and also with U.S. relations. Well, there are really no relations, but when the U.S. and Iran, kind of duke it out, we experience kind of the side effects of those things, such as when Qasem Soleimani was taken out in January, and then Iran fired missiles into Iraq. Some of those missiles landed here in Erbil near the airport. So I wanted to make this podcast and just try to bring a more informative side to our channel. And talk to you guys about this new piece of news that we're seeing, where Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is telling Iraq that it's planning to pull out of the embassy in Baghdad. The U.S. Embassy in Baghdad is the largest embassy in the world for the United States. I mean, it is a massive facility that takes an entire riverbank. It's like in the green zone. It is really a big, a big embassy. And just the fact that the U.S. is warning Iraq, like, we're going to pull out, is a big deal. And this has, really big geopolitical implications. And this is not something that people are looking at as a joke. So in a sense, the reason behind the U.S. warning the Iraqi government is that the U.S. is tired of the constant rocket barrages that it's been getting at the U.S. Embassy. I mean, earlier this summer, we were seeing notifications almost every night, like 2 a.m., the phone would start blowing up saying, rocket attack on the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. And this has been going on, and it's believed that this is being done by Iranian-backed militias who are firing rockets into the U.S. Embassy, into the green zone, to, try to put pressure on the United States after the killing of Qasem Soleimani, because we really didn't see this before that. I mean, this has only really started happening since the U.S. took out Qasem Soleimani. And, the Iraqi government, what the problem here is, in my opinion, and what I see, is that the U.S., is upset with the Iraqi government for its inability to rein in these Iranian-backed militias and keep them under control and prevent them from attacking the U.S. coalition, the U.S. government, and its diplomatic outposts. So, just to give you a little background, the U.S. invaded Iraq in 2003 and then pulled out in 2011. And in this pullout of 2011, we had a rise in insurgency and terrorism. And then the U.S. came back in 2014 after the ISIS caliphate appeared, and basically we've been here since 2014, leading the U.S.-led, it's called the U.S.-led coalition. So, we're leading that coalition to fight terrorism, extremism, ISIS, and whatnot here in Iraq and in the region. So if the U.S. is really going to pull out of the embassy in Baghdad, that has a lot of things that are going to follow, such as the U.S. will no longer be leading this coalition, right? Because, mainly they're fighting terrorism here in Iraq. And, the U.S. might still be leading the coalition, but it just won't have that presence in Iraq anymore. And that's a big deal. Second, I see that, all of the visas and the processing for American citizen services, all of that stuff in Baghdad will have to be stopped, and it'll have to be brought here to Erbil, because there used to be a consulate in Basra as well, because there were a lot of U.S. citizens in Basra, and they were working in the oil industry, and I think they still are. But the consulate there was closed, and then now if the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad closes, all that leaves is the consulate here in Erbil. And Erbil, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you new to the channel, for those of you who are just listening to this podcast, Erbil is where we live, and it's been a beacon of stability and safety for a number of years. And it comes as no surprise that maybe the U.S. is thinking, look, why don't we, kind of consolidate and look at our options in Erbil? Because the U.S. currently, for those of you not in the city, the U.S. is building a new consulate here in Erbil, and it's supposed to be the largest U.S. consulate in the world. For U.S. consulates, I mean, I don't know how big they typically are, but this one here in Erbil, it looks massive. When you drive by it, it is really looking big. And it seems like there's something happening here if you kind of connect the dots, right? Like the U.S. is, announcing, we're gonna pull out of our embassy in Baghdad if the Iraqi government can't stop these rocket attacks. But at the same time, we're building the largest U.S. consulate in the world. So it kind of makes one wonder what the future of relations are here. And the Iraqi prime minister was just in Washington, D.C. I believe it was like less than a month ago. So I wonder if this is when the U.S. warned him or gave him the warning and then said, look, man, if you can't, stop these missile attacks, if you can't rein in these Iranian-backed militias, we're going to make, some moves, and we might end up closing the U.S. embassy to keep our personnel safe, right? So, Mike Pompeo apparently warned him, Prime Minister Kadhimi, of this, and it's yet to see what's going to happen. I think that it won't be. I think obviously this would have a negative impact on, U.S. and Iraqi relations, but the Iran-backed militia threat is it's evolving here, and it's something that the U.S. is growing increasingly worried about. I think that the future is anything but certain in Iraq. I mean, this is anything can happen here in the Kurdistan region. We are pretty safe and it's very stable here, but in federal Iraq, like with these Iranian-backed militias and with a lot of places where there's a lot of tension between populations, it just has remained to be seen what's going to happen. And the U.S. doesn't want its people being targeted by rocket attacks. So I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. I'm going to cut it short here. I'll link the 2 articles that I read before making this podcast. Most of this was done, just on my knowledge of the situation based on, living in Erbil for the past 3 years since 2017. If you guys like this podcast, if you enjoyed it, please let me know. Give me your feedback. Leave a comment. If you're watching this from outside of Iraq and you'd like me to cover more news about Iraq, please let me know in the comments as well. I'd be really happy to bring a unbiased and, kind of an insider perspective to Iraq, to more U.S. citizens, to more people living outside of Iraq. I'm a U.S. citizen myself, and I've lived here for a while, as I've mentioned several times, but I'd like to be giving more of an inside perspective to some of these main news articles that maybe some people are looking for another aspect to. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the very first podcast from Let's Watch the Golden Things. And if you liked it, again, please leave a comment. Please like and subscribe to the channel. If you didn't like this podcast, you can go ahead and give a thumbs down as well. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. And that's going to do it for us. We'll see you in the next podcast.